So the tarbiyah of the child and the tarbiyah of the awlad and the boys and the children begins, and the atfal begins from the cradle. Begins from the cradle. So the child from the cradle is used to his mother and his father praying the 5 daily prayers. So much so that you'll find that a child that is raised in a family at the age of 1 and 1.5, that when the child knows the mother has to pray, then the child gives up the fight. Remains quiet because he knows I can't do anything, she has to go and pray. So the child is raised like that. When the prayer time comes, and the mother calls the adhan in the house, and this is something that is permissible, it is something that is allowable, it is something that is established from the hadith of the athar of the companions of Allah's Messenger, the likes of Salama, reported by Al-Albani in Tamam al-Minna, that when the women folk are alone in their houses amongst other women folk, then they should call the adhan, and they should call the iqamah, and they should establish a jama'ah in their houses amongst the women. So when the child in the house, when the baby at the age of 6 months and 8 months begins to hear the adhan inside of the house, he knows that this adhan signifies something. So the tarbiyah begins from an early age with regard to our children. And it proceeds throughout the early years. And sometimes with regard to the children, that we have to be firm with the children. Not beating them. I'm not talking about here beating. I'm talking about being firm. Knowing that no means no. That when you say to your child, it's no, then that child knows that mother is serious when she says no. Not no, and then the child goes ahead and does it, and then she complains, well, he doesn't listen to me. No. Rather, when you say no to your child, you will not eat that thing, or you will not go upstairs and do that, or you will not go to that cupboard, then that child must know that no means no. And if he walks towards the table, or walks to that which you are forbidding him from, then you hold his hand and you pull him away from that. And that child may cry. It doesn't mean that you beat them, you're restraining them. And restraining is not the same as beating. You take the hand of that child and you tell the child, you will not go near that cupboard. You will scream, you will shout, but you will not go near that thing that I'm forbidding you from. And likewise, as we know from Allah Jalla wa Ala, that when Allah rewards, that Allah rewards manifold. And when Allah writes down a sin, He writes down a single sin. And this is something that is established in the Sunnah of Allah's Messenger and in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a person does a good deed, that we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writes it down, one good deed, there's a silver Honda that needs to be moved, registration plate is 2002. So there's a silver Honda outside that needs to be moved, its registration is in the year 2002. We know that when we do a good deed, then Allah writes it down as 10 good deeds, up to 700 times and many times more than that if He so wills. So therefore, when our child does a good deed, and we encourage the children with good deeds, then likewise the reward should be multiple. So they know that every time I do a good deed, I don't just get rewarded once. My parents give me a lot of reward for that. And when they commit a crime, or when they commit a transgression, even if it be by way of adab, by way of bad manners, or bad etiquette, then we punish singularly. So they know that every time I do a good deed, look how much I get. Every time I do a bad deed, then, I should keep away from the bad deed, because I know that the punishment is there. So the more good deeds that I do, the greater the reward. And when I do an evil deed, or when I do a bad deed that my parents are displeased, I get punished for it. So therefore, likewise, with regard to our children, we should have this tarbiyah with them. So they are encouraged all the time to do righteous actions. Even if, obviously we know that our children, for those of you who have children, that when you're praying and they come and stand next to you, let them come and stand next to you in the prayer, even if they're messing up the prayer. They're standing in the prayer and they're spinning around in one spot. And you make Rafal Yadayn and they put their hands on their heads. But they're learning, this is the learning process of the child. The child gets used to it. After 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, he's standing next to you in the prayer. By the age of 7, you don't even have to order the child a lot of the time. You just tell him, listen, I'm going to pray. You're going to pray? And he'll come and pray with you. Because even though we know that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, order the child with the prayer at 7. Beat them at the age of 10. Meaning, that if they're not praying at 7, order them with the prayer. When the prayer time comes, order them with the prayer. And at the age of 10, if they're not praying, then beat them for that and separate their beds. So therefore we know that there are children out there. And I've seen children like this, that when the prayer time comes, you don't even have to tell them. They stand up and they pray with the mother or they pray with the father. Certain children like this. Why? Because it is so ingrained and inculcated in their hearts and their souls that the prayer time has come, they come to pray. So you don't even have to command them. By the age of 10, second nature to them. So beating doesn't even have to come into it. So the Prophet of Allah ordered with commanding them to pray at the age of 7, meaning that if they don't wish to pray, you must command them to pray. But don't beat them for it. Don't beat them for it at the age of 7. Between the ages of 7 and 9, you don't beat them. At the age of 10, if they refuse to pray, then it is permissible to beat a child to pray. Again, this beating is not a beating that brutalizes. Not a beating that breaks the bones. It's not the beating of the local imam in the mosque, when you can't recite the Quran and he knocks the wind out of your back. This is not the beating that we're talking about. The beating that we're talking about is a beating that obviously causes some discomfort to them. But it is not a beating that lacerates the body, leaves a bruise or breaks the bones. This is not the type of beating. Rather, we should be gentle with our children. Gentle in the sense that we encourage them, and firm in the sense that they know that there's no crossing a certain line. And we have to raise our children upon this. Not like the children of the kuffar. That every week they have to devise a new policy of making him concentrate, making him obey, controlling his behavior. Every week they're trying to devise something. Why? Because in the early years they never paid any attention. So when they wake up at the age of 13 and she's gone to the doctor to go onto the pill, and he's going to the local family planning unit to get condoms, that's when they start thinking, actually, what's going wrong with my family? It didn't go wrong then at the age of 13. It went wrong from the cradle. When that child was in the cradle and in the cot, you never paid attention. You never disciplined. You never set demarcations for him that he cannot pass these marks of or these signs of demarcation. He can't pass certain goalposts. You're not going past them. This is the barrier, and you're not going beyond that. Those weren't set. The tarbiyah wasn't given. The love of Allah wasn't established. The fear of Allah wasn't established. The respect and honor for the parents wasn't established. How is there that a father commands his son with something, and the son turns his back and walks away at the age of 5? What's he going to do at the age of 20 or 15? When the hormones in his body are going nuts in him. Literally going nuts. He doesn't know where he is. At the age of adolescence. And likewise with the women. If they're not obeying you at the age of 5, how are they going to obey you at the age of 15 when it's even worse? And they're stronger. And they're strong-willed. And there is something that even you can benefit from the research of the kuffar. Because not everything that they do research in is useless. You can take benefit from it. And Ahlul Ilm, like Ibn Uthaymeen and Al-Albani and Ibn Baz have mentioned the permissibility of taking benefit from the research that is correct and true. And from some of the research that they have done, which seems to bear some truth to it, is that a child from the age of a young age, from the age of about 1 up until the age of 7, takes commands. Basically, he's instructed. He takes instruction. From the age of a toddler up until about the age of 7, he takes instruction. You instruct him with something, he will take the instruction. From the age of 7 up until adult life, or up until his late teens, then he emulates. So there is a time of instruction and there is a time of emulation. In the time of instruction, he will take from the one who is strong with him and firm with him and encourages him with good deeds and encourages him with learning and studying. And he treats him well. He will take instruction from that person, whether it be the father or the mother. From the age of 7 up until the late teens, now he will emulate those he regards to be people to be emulated. So if the people that he regards to be good and the heads of the society and those people that he wishes to copy are football stars or music stars or film stars, as they call them, if he regards those to be objects of emulation, then he will emulate and take them as an example to be followed. So now, if you have instructed them from the age of toddler to the age of 7, and then from the age of 7 onwards, you not only instructed them, but rather you instructed them and you set an example. So when he looks at his father, he says, I want to be like him. But if his father's a bum, meaning that he's just a beggar, and he has no life, he's a person who's not providing, he's not looking after his family, he's always shouting at his mother, he's a bad example, he's not educating his mother, he's treating him bad, he hardly ever sees him, he doesn't take him to the masjid, he doesn't take him to the circles, and so on and so forth. And the occasion that he does take him, because the child is not used to it, he goes to the masjid and he goes on, like a delinquent juvenile. So when he goes there, because he doesn't go and he's not used to company and he's not used to being out, and he's not being given the right tarbiyah, he doesn't know how to behave in front of people. So then you find that the mother or the father, that in front of the guest, all they can do is smile. Because they can't now discipline now.